Foundation, I think, would argue pretty strongly that what we need, despite everything that's going on in the economy, to generate more good work. And what do we mean by that? Well, I'll explain in a second. Back in July, we published the results of an 18-month investigation into job quality called the Good Work Commission. You can get the report free on our website. We had the chief execs of ASDA, Standard Chartered, ITV, Barclays, The Guardian. We had a couple of trade union leaders, and even the Bishop of London came along before we got embroiled in tents. And it looked in detail at several aspects of job quality and good work. And what's really clear is we know from the clinical evidence that good work is good for people's health. Now, the notion that work does you more damage than good might have been true 150 years ago in some occupations. It's certainly not the case now. And of course, there are workplace hazards and exposure to chemicals and hazardous situations. But by and large, it's pretty clear that being in work is much better for your health than not being in work. But what does good work look like? Why have we got so little of it, and how can we get more? Well, one of the things that the Good Work Commission did was try and explore this. There are different elements of good work. These are just some of them. Employment security, back to my point about control, having discretion, interesting and challenging and varied work, a balance between effort and reward, a sense of procedural justice, so that actually how things are done in your organisation are transparent and fair and win your consent, and also high trust relationships, so high levels of social capital and both a collective and individual voice. And isn't it interesting how much overlap there is between this list and the four drivers that David McLeod talked about early on? And it's in a one level a no-brainer. All this stuff is known. The real challenge is to try and get more organisations to understand that it isn't just about piety or feeling warm and cuddly. This has concrete business implications. Now, one of the key things we found as part of this commission was the importance, and it comes again back to what David McLeod was saying, of having some sense of purpose in the organisation, what he called the strategic narrative. And in fact, our report has a whole chapter on meaning and purpose at work and why it's important to people. And the thing that we found was it's important to everybody. So although the story about the guy at the NASA space station, sweeping up and helping put a man on the moon is a bit twee, actually most people in most jobs want to feel that what they're doing is worthwhile. And that gives them a connectedness to the purpose of the organisation and some sense that actually what they're doing means something. Now, John Varley, who was Chief Exec of Barclays at the time when he was serving on the Good Work Commission, was pretty clear about this. He said that a business has a responsibility to give a really clear sense of purpose that animates people. It's not just a tick box exercise. It has to hit them at a gut level. Organisations can't give people meaning. That's something they have to derive from the sense of purpose they get. But unless organisations are doing that, even in these troubling times, they're not going to get the levels of psychological engagement and therefore performance that they want. And it's all very well cracking the whip and sweating assets and telling people what to do. But as David said, they want to know why. That sense of consent is something that's really important. So I think that there is time that we actually brought the issue of psychological resilience and well-being up to the same level of sophistication and status as we've done with employee engagement. I'd like to see more organisations measuring psychological well-being and resilience in the same way that they do engagement.